Okay, so now it's 3 p.m. Is it all right to restart? So our third speaker today is Tatsuya Daikoku from University of Tokyo, and he's going to talk about understanding embodied cognitive mechanism of music based on brain predictive processing. Please, Tatsuya.
Okay, let's start. Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Tatsuya Daikoku, assistant professor at the University of Tokyo and affiliated researcher at Cambridge University. So the title of my presentation is the Embodied Cognition of Music based on predictive processing. So my main focus of my research is auditory processing with a particular interest in actually the brain kind of development associated with music and speech, auditory processing. For today's presentation, I'll be discussing what subjective experience in music are. We often experience a range of emotions from music, such as joy and sadness, or something like that, nostalgic feeling. These subject experience can vary based on culture and era. Yet some are universal. For example, research suggests that the measure key generally evoke more positive emotions than minor key across culture. However, Western music-based preference for something like the consonance over dissonance is not shared by indigenous people of Amazon. It's opposite. So that is while the music consonance and dissonance, that is the kind of degree of frequency ratio, physical phenomenon, is mathematical and linked with the cochlear function of the human ear. The preference and evoked emotion, the preference and depend on our what kind of and how degree of auditory stimuli we have experienced through our development or lifetime. Then the question is, what kind of component link between music and the subjective emotion? So to understand this, today I will focus on the following two key points. The first is the temporal dynamics of predictability, and the second is embodied cognition. So not just the auditory cognition in music. That is, it's about the subjective feeling of our body caused by something like increase of heartbeat by excitement, as well as just a brain function. Okay, so first is temporal dynamics of predictability. Well, our brain, so one of our brain functions, our brain continuously predicts sensory input drawing on prior experience. A prediction error occurs when there is a gap between prior prediction and the actual sensory input. The brain uses Bayesian inference to reconcile these prediction errors, treating the prediction from internal model as prior probability, and the sensory input as likelihood, to arrive at the most plausible posterior prediction. The prior prediction are regulated by the perceptual uncertainty at higher hierarchical level. So the important question is that through that kind of predictive processing, how music is learned, or how music is created, and how music emotion emerges. Particularly, the music predictive processing is often explained with the framework of statistical learning, which is one of the innate and implicit learning system of the brain. So statistical learning refers to the system that calculate So transitional probability from sequential information such as music and speech, and uses these transitional probability to predict future information while being modulated by perceptual uncertainty. This learning system is reflected in brain activity by using EEG and MEG. So when brain encodes, this is a very famous phenomenon that known as the mismatch negativity, that when the brain encodes the transitional probability of stimulus sequences, it expects the probable future stimuli with a high transitional probability and inhibit the neural responses to predictable stimuli. Finally, the effect of statistical learning manifests as the differences in the brain activity between stimuli with lower and higher transitional probability. For instance, the statistical learning enables infant to extract the chunk of high probability sound stimuli, such as words and phrase, musical phrase and language words, from their mother speech sounds, even without any prior linguistic knowledge. So let's proceed with a brief exercise. So you will first be presented with a longer sound stimuli, sound stream, followed by two distinct shorter sound streams. I'd like you to listen carefully and then identify which of the shorter sound is more familiar with you. This is the learning sound. Then you hear the two short sound. Second. Well, I guess the most of you, hopefully, might find the first set of shorter sound more familiar, right? So interestingly, the longer sequences is actually comprised of concatenation of several shorter chunked streams. The transitional probability within the chunk is, of course, the 100%, while the transitional probability between chunks is lower. Our brain subconsciously calculates this transitional probability, allowing us to subconsciously extract the sound chunk. As a result, we find this shorter sound familiar. This study is firstly conducted by Safran in science in 1996. But this using the speech sequences and infant, and they say that the even sleeping infant can automatically calculate the transition probability and recognize the discriminate the familiarity between word and non-word. The recent evidence has shown such a statistical learning contributes to not only to the perception of music, but also the creation of music. That is, the internal model generated by music statistical learning can be utilized when creating a new music. So the next question is how music statistical learning elicits music emotion. So regarding the music prediction error elicits physical sensation, such as chills or increase in heart rate. These physical sensations can sometimes be experienced as music pleasure, which in turn stimulates the release of dopamine in the brain, a process known as positive reward prediction error. That is, these music-induced physical sensations contribute to embodied cognition or embodied kind of aesthetic experience of music. For instance, music, well, this is one of the examples regarding the music temporal processing, but music syncopation occurs when a tone is played at moments that doesn't align with a regular beat timing. This gap between basic beat and actual tone elicits a prediction error, often leading to the behavioral impulse to tap something like this, or feet or hand to reinforce the beat internalized by our brain. Well, such kind of phenomenon is, you can imagine that in jazz, when you hear the jazz music, that's called a kind of groove something like that. So imagine you listen to this rhythm. Okay, there's a syncopation. So in that moment, our brain starts to anticipate the next beat, compelling us to tap along with our feet or hand based on this beat sound, our brain. So this action blends our own tapping sound with the actual rhythm sound, something like this. See? That can be interpreted that the brain so this is one of the interpretation, but that can be interpreted that our brain try to reduce the perceptual uncertainty of rhythm and making temporal prediction easier by so-called active inference, leading to music enjoyment and brain reward thanks to the reduction of prediction error. Importantly, one of the music active inference are less likely to occur when rhythms are overly complex, something like random sequences. This is because excessively complex rhythms make it difficult to resolve prediction error, even with active inference. In other words, it believes that there is somehow an appropriate level of uncertainty and prediction error, which can be resolved by active inference, trigger the behavioral impulse. So this is often explained by, such a phenomenon is often explained by the inverted U-shaped curve. For instance, when uncertainty-weighted prediction error, which combine prediction error and uncertainty, is at the intermediate level, which is corresponding to the peak of inverted U-shaped curve, it can evoke the strong pleasure of music. For example, the functional MRI study has also reported that the syncopation, which corresponds to the peak of inverted U-shaped curve of temporal predictability, leads to activity of brain's reward system, such as nucleus accumbens and orbitofrontal cortex, and the motor system also, including the basal ganglia and the premotor cortex. That is, by a certain prediction error, the brain prompts our body to move, and in doing so, receive a reward. So the peak of this inverted U-shaped uncertainty-weighted prediction error apply not only to rhythm, but also to musical chord progression. In this case, the peak of inverted U-shaped corresponds to the situation where either uncertainty or surprise, the prediction error is high and the other is low. As an example, I generate a universal model of music chord progression based on brain statistical learning using a large corpus of pop music chords, pop music chord progression. Then, using this model, I created 4 types of 4 chord progression by manipulating both uncertainty and surprise. For example, in pattern 1, is so the blue is the temporal dynamics of the surprise, and red is the temporal dynamics uncertainty in the 4 chord progression. For instance, in pattern 1, both uncertainty and surprise are consistently low across 4 chord sequences. Therefore, we can easily predict that all 4 chords. So this is an example. Okay, well, I guess there's no surprise. It's a typical chord progression, even in the musical, in the perspective of music theory. In pattern 2, uncertainty and surprise. In pattern 2, uncertainty and surprise are low until 3rd chord. See, but at the 4th chord, in the last chord, only surprise increased while uncertainty remained low. Therefore, we will be certainly surprised when we hear 4th chord. in the last chord, you will be surprised because it's a strange, I mean, it's a low transition probability, but you can recognize, oh, this is a surprise chord, right? So certainly surprise. Then on the other hand, in pattern 3, this is opposite to the pattern 2. The uncertainty and surprise are low up to the third chord. This is the same to the pattern 2, but in the last chord, at the fourth chord, only uncertainty increase while the surprise remain low. So this type of sequences called progression leads to the uncertain prediction when we hear the third chord. But we may be relieved when we actually heard the fourth chord, because the fourth chord is less surprise. I mean that this is opposite to the pattern 2, so it's not surprise, but little bit how can I say it? So less confidence in the surprise, in the prediction. So anyway, let's hear the sequences examples. So again, so in the until the third chord, here you will be a little bit difficult to predict what's going on the next third chord. But in the last chord, oh, a little bit kind of relieved. Really, I think that is not prediction error, right? Of course, it depends on the person, but it's I'm now talking about the general phenomena of the music chord progression. So then in pattern 4, this is a very easy one. The uncertainty and the surprise are low up to the third chord, but at the fourth chord, both uncertainty and the surprise increase. This type sequences, called sequences, leads to the uncertain prediction when we heard the third chord. Then we may be actually surprised when we heard the fourth chord. See? So this is a chord sequence that's both uncertainty and surprise are high. In this case, in this type of chord sequences, the peak of the inverted U-shaped uncertainty weighted prediction error corresponding to the either pattern 2 or pattern 3, where either uncertainty or surprise is high and the other is low. A functional MRI study has reported that reward system in the brain is activated during the such chord, these two types of chord. 20 minutes. Sorry. In music, the surprise of music, very okay. Left. Okay. I still have time, right? So in music, the surprise or prediction become more pronounced when uncertainty and the prediction error, I will hurry, so fluctuate within the single piece of music. For instance, a predictable chord following the completely predictable chord progression may lead to boring. Oh, sorry. However, the predictable chord following the unpredictable chord progression may lead to the sense of relief. Right? You will be surprised until the third chord. But you may be relieved. So such temporal dynamics of the predictability leads to individuality of music, such as genre, musician, and song. Furthermore, such fluctuation also occur between songs. We detected that the uncertainty of music fluctuates over composer's lifetime. For instance, uncertainty of music was gradually increased in my previous study in Beethoven's piano sonata over his lifetime. I divided the 3 periods of the Beethoven piano sonata, and late period, the uncertainty of music is become high. So these fluctuations of prediction not only occur through the composer lifetime, but also evoke across various composer and through time. By using brain statistical learning model called, I analyzed temporal dynamics of predictability of large corpus of jazz improvisation. That is, I examine how individuality of temporal dynamics of uncertainty and surprise in improvisational melody has changed over time from 1900 and 2000. It shows that there are distinct features of the temporal dynamics in each era, suggesting the epochal change of individuality of music creativity over time within the framework of brain hierarchical statistical learning. Actually, today's presentation, I would like you to hear the music that I composed using my model to predict the future music, but there is really no time. So please come to me if you want to hear the new music that time. I mean, I basically the composer. So my dream is to make the new music that is not familiar with everyone. It's kind of contemporary music, but it's more adaptable to our current brain. So if you want to hear, please come to me. So I just skip. So now I'd like to turn to the second factor, the embodied cognition of music in connection with the first factor of temporal dynamics of predictability. As discussed today, it's by certain musical prediction error, the brain prompts our body to move and in doing so receive a reward. But beyond that, music also sparks embodied cognition, not just the auditory cognition. Okay, interestingly, the embodied emotion can be monitored through the body sensation map triggered by emotion. Recent studies suggest that such subjective body map may be reflected in actual body physical recording, such as positron emission topography, PET, heart rate, respiratory, and so on. Very recent study reveals that music emotion can also be monitored by such a body map, that is, whole body as well as the brain function. However, no study investigates how fluctuation of uncertainty and prediction error modulate the body map within the framework of brain statistical learning. So I skipped this one, but I generate the 8 type of chord progression based on the uncertainty and the prediction error. And then after hearing this chord progression, I asked the participants where the body, what area of the body you feel. It's just a subjective feeling, not actual feeling, just by hearing, after hearing. So this is the result of the body map. So interestingly, when both prediction error and uncertainty were low in chord progression, the participant reported the strong sensation, particularly in the abdominal position. Conversely, when learning the chord progression with the fluctuation of predictability, where the surprise was high but uncertainty was low, fitting into the peak point of the invited U curve of uncertainty weighted prediction error, participants showed the strong sensation, particularly around in heart area. This suggests the embodied cognition of music where certain harmonic patterns are able to elicit distinct sensation in different parts of the body. Further, we have also discovered that the heart sensation, particularly heart sensation, correlates with positive valence. This finding suggests that the positive correlation between music positive emotion and interoceptive sensation felt in the heart. So I will skip this one. I also asked the other emotion, including the 33 emotion, based on the Cohen's paper. I mean, there is a 33 categorical emotion. So this is the last result. So additionally, we explore the intensity of this 32 different emotion, categorical emotion in response to each chord. Using this emotional data, we examine where there are unique emotional distribution of each chord using the TSNE analysis. The results suggest that the possibility of the unique emotional distribution for each chord, indicating that the relative relationship of emotional structure in each chord may explain subjective music experience. But the findings imply that the emotional structure may vary depending on whether physical sensations are strong or weak. So this suggests that the individual music emotions are deeply linked with the subject emotion, embodied cognition. Okay. So this is the current, the temporal result that I'm now conducting. I'm also interested in the lifelong body map, how aging or development changing the body map. So we are currently collaborating, actually, Hori-san and the other on the large scale of study involving 2,000 participants to understand how body map of temporal dynamics of prediction in music vary through the human's lifespan from birth to the old age. The current result indicates that the heart and abdomen or stomach area sensation evoked by music tend to peak and localize around age 20s here, and gradually diminish and diffuse thereafter. These findings are based on the participant age over 15, and we plan to start experiment with the participant under age of 15 soon. So in summary, temporal dynamics of prediction for preferred music vary through the era and individual development and moderate embodied musical cognition related with interoception. And such an embodied musical cognition varies throughout our lifespan from birth to the old age. Then the last is the subjective experience of music can be explained by the relationship in their emotional structure. Okay, that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, any question or comments? Iza-san? All right.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for a wonderful talk. So is this this body sensation is quite interesting. Is this specific to this music problem of the music or prediction error or reward prediction error in general?
Is it music specific embodied?
Specific or as long as people feel some prediction error, always we feel such a body sensation.
Thank you very much for a very important question. I actually now my graduate student is now conducting using the visual art, and because the music is a sequential information, it's easier to control the prediction and the surprise, uncertainty. But the spatial area, for me, it's difficult how to control the prediction because it's not sequential information. But at least I conducted the participants to the visual, present the visual information and asked the body map, and some stimuli is specifically embodied, especially localized to the heart, but the other is kind of hands and feet. So the heart and abdomen is the universal, not universal, but across the stimuli, across the modality. But there's some visual stimuli, sometimes the body map is that kind of hand and feet. I don't know the reason why, and now I'm conducting the recording, the conducting a physical recording and compare how this body map is related with actual physical phenomena.
The second question.
Yes.
So I actually don't know the exact meaning of the embodied cognition, but I thought that it refer or indicate more dynamical interaction between body and perception or cognition. So so you said that people try to move the body, listening the music. Of course, we know it is right. And is there a more dynamical interaction between how people move and how people feel, or how people, for example, maybe prediction error could be modulated by such a body movement?
Thank you very much for the question. I mean, in terms of the movement, I actually don't know, but in this body perception, actually the reviewer criticized me about this one, and I conducted. My first hypothesis was the embodied cognition, physical sensation modulates the emotion. I mean, the dynamics from physical sensation kind of leads to the emotion, but my hypothesis was the opposite, at least in this body map. Firstly, the body map, body feeling induced the emotion. This is the opposite area in this body map test. But in my feeling, I think that this is the actual explicit cognition of body maps. That's why it's more, I don't know, the late phenomena. That's why I think the first I think the implicit feeling of the physical sensation occur, then emotion occur, and then I think the body map, like explicit feeling of the physical sensation, like body map may occur. I think this is my next hypothesis. Yeah, that's that.
Okay, so there was a question from the Zoom audience. Angus, how can people enjoy music they already know very well, such as low uncertainty and low surprise?
How can we people music?
we-
Yeah, without any prediction error or something like that. Well, as I said, well, I don't know that this is the across modality phenomena, I think. But if the people, I don't know, just tired because of the in the lifetime, because tired in that, I don't know the hot kind of stimuli, but by prediction error, they want to hear the more nostalgic and familiar music. At that time, the current status of the feeling is very important. If they are tired and if they don't want to hear that, they don't want to be surprised, they don't want to hear the prediction error stimuli, they can enjoy the, what can I say, the low uncertain music. But that's why I say the temporal dynamics of the uncertainty is very important. And yeah, that's right. But if they don't tired, they just, in their they just hear the low uncertain music all the time, they just boring. It's a more negative feeling.
Okay, thanks. Is that answer?
Thank you very much. Nice talk. So yeah, we have done some fMRI study, presenting music and scoring the emotional, notations. But it's very difficult to find, some consistent brain activation, which is common between music-induced brain activity and some video, some specific emotion with specific emotional contents. Although, if we force the subject to rate, which content it is, yeah, they can, but it's poorly, related. So yeah, I also feel that we feel some emotion when listening to music, but it seems to be a bit different from
between individuals.
Yeah, and also emotion induced by some actual events. So it's more music-induced emotion, maybe similar to mood or something, or so. And I like your theory of certainty and prediction, and that explains a lot of phenomenon, and I like that theory. But that's not specify specific emotional contents or granularity when we're describing actual emotion. So there seems to be some gap between music-induced emotion and some event-induced emotion. And do you have any opinion about that?
Thank you very much. Very, very important question. I actually always hesitate a comment when I present it. Well, at least I use music stimuli because, well, of course, I want to know the music-specific emotion. It's very exciting if I can know. But at least in this study, I use the music because it's easy to control the stimuli. And of course, I think this body map is more general phenomenon, not music-specific emotion, specific emotion. But as I said to the last question, so sequential information is easier to understand the temporal dynamics that I use the music, and the language is more difficult because the meaning, a specific meaning, something like that. That's just that, well, just the stimuli I use, the stimuli. I cannot answer at the moment the music specific emotion. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just to follow up that, actually, so your kind of assumption is that the uncertainty and also the
surprise.
surprise
Yeah.
would form like a two-dimensional kind of a space,
Yeah.
and that would map onto the two-dimensional kind of emotion structure that you are kind of assuming, right? Most likely. But if I also tend to agree with Yuki that emotion is not really that simple, like two-dimensional. I don't know. Maybe
Sure.
in the case of music evoked emotion may be very simple, but something much more complicated requires finer dimensionality and expecting that uncertainty and also surprise can.
It's too simple.
I mean, I can't imagine how it can connect with a complex kind of landscape of emotional Qualia structure.
Thank you very much, Chris. Because I think the music has there are many components induced by music. Something like episodic memory is connected to the music as well. Not only just the stimuli, physical stimuli phenomena. That's all. Yeah, I read that.
Any other question or comments?
Yeah, maybe I have one. I was just very general. I'm just curious. We're interested in that. Why do you think we have this feeling actually of pleasure, of sort of kind of an aesthetic pleasure in this case, right? Why do you think we have this in the first place?
Pleasure
of this kind of feeling of aesthetics that we sort of take pleasure in this music or in objects of arts. Something is really quite abstract.
Yeah. Well, I think that that you were not discriminating between the emotion itself and the pleasure species, right? Or just
the sense of aesthetics, basically, right? That you're
okay.
So it's let's say this positive emotion that you have when you hear music that you like, or when you see a work of art and so on. You can appreciate something that you can't explain with simple features, something very abstract.
Well, actually, at the moment in this study, I couldn't answer completely this question. But as I said, I think the interoception or physical sensation from the stimuli at least modulates such a pleasure, because of course it's not just surprise, it's not just two-dimensional, but for example, the surprise stimuli is induce the heart rate, increase the heart rate. This is kind of induce the excitement of the feeling of excitement. I think that this is one component, at least one component, I think. But of course, there's also many complex components. And I would like to clarify about this. But one is, I think, the interoception based induced by.
Is this something uniquely human, or other animals also have similar type of responses to music? This kind of.
You mean the human or the other species?
Whether other animals, other monkeys and so on.
Or
Just
my experience, I think that there is a dog. I like the dog. I have many dogs, and I think the dog will surprise. For example, if I try to surprise the dog, and the dog sometimes smiling, so that's the dog also occurs. Something like that.
Thank you.
You mean the music perception in other animals?
Yeah, no. So
Well,
if this type of reactions, actually, so this type of emotion or this type of body states, if other animals have similar interoceptive like states as we humans have when we listen to certain musics.
I mean, at least some of the rat study in Takashi-san's labs in Tokyo seems to show that rats dance and seems to move with the music. But I don't know whether that actually talks about the emotional experience of the rats.
That's rhythmic to hear it. I know that some researchers say that the voicing animal will at least feeling the emotion from the music. Yeah, like bird and the dog. Yeah, I don't know. That's
about the music pleasure. one of the most common and very popular kind of the pleasure induced by music is singing a popular song, right? Singing or listening to popular song, like the one that you
Well-
you hear elsewhere. But that kind of relates to Angus's question. But the more you experience and the more you become familiar with this particular song, it feels like, regardless of whether you are tired or not, you seem to like it and you probably enjoy the music, no? In general. How do you explain this kind of, popularity of the popular music in general?
I forgot the English, but I think it's a kind of 単純接触効果. Yeah,
Exposure effect.
yeah, I think. But it's very simple answer. That's why it's not just that one, but one of the explanation, I think it is a 単純接触効果, I guess.
But only, very, very peculiar popular music just becomes very popular and sells really well, right? So mere exposure is very difficult to
Yeah,
explain anything
yeah,
like that,
yeah.
I think.
Thank you.
And that's one part of the.
Yeah. Well, at least what I cannot say I don't like, but I like more unfamiliar music. So I think it depends on the individual person, because children and infant like the children music. It's a simple structure, but by developing the brain, auditory brain, they already they learn such a music. They want to hear more uncertain. They want to learn. They want to learn more complex music. So that's why I think it depends on the kind of that how developed, how learn in between individual, I guess. Yeah. Any other question? Yeah.
Hello. So it's not a question, but if we have time, and I'd like to hear your music.
Yeah, very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
No? It's okay? Okay, yes. Well, it's not compression, but this is a computationally composed and computationally generated, but now I'm practicing. So my importance is I need to play the music, even it's computer composed. But yeah, this is the composed. I mean, what can I say that my purpose is to model from Renaissance to current in temporal dynamics of the, I don't know, the temporal dynamics of the statistical learning model of music. And then by using this, I think I can predict the neo-futuristic music. But it takes time. At the moment, I generate until Baroque. Then I try to predict how the composer who live in Baroque period try to refuse from the typical model and try to go the classical music. It's like the Beethoven's period. So this is I only code pitch and length of the tone. Then there's no music theory at all. Interestingly, it's becoming like the Baroque music. And I control the temporal dynamics of the surprise and uncertainty. So that's why sometimes the music become a surprise simulate. But then they try to use more predictable means. So temporal dynamics is very important for this. Sorry, I didn't think any the end of the meeting. That's why the finishing is very strange. But as I said, I only code the pitch and the length of the tone, then generated the music. This become a music. But I think it's not surprising because I code only use the music. It's become a music.
Yeah, that's the music that I proud of. Thank you very much.
With that, then thank you, Tatsuya.
Thank you very much.